deep desert valley, haunted by the ghosts of ancient civilization, lies a circuit where your only chance of survival is speed. Hi, and welcome to Round 5 of the Missed Apex Formula 3 Challenge as we travel across the pond to the brake-busting circuit of the Americas. From the horrors of the Turn 1 hairpin to the feral savagery of the legendary S's, from the insanity of Turn 11 to the final fling for glory, there is no mercy for the drivers on the sun-scorched asphalt. To get us underway today, please give a warm welcome to your commentators, Chris Stevens and Chris Catman Turner.
After the dramas of Spa-Francorchamps, the series returns to another famous venue at the Circuit of the Americas. Welcome to round 5 of the Missed Apex iRacing F3 Cup in Season 6. My name is Chris Stevens, and alongside me is Chris Catman Turner. Chris, doesn't it feel great to be back at COTA?
I absolutely love this place, Chris. I can virtually smell the burgers and the barbecues drifting over the airways, even though they're not real, but I'm so looking forward to this. What a wonderful circuit this is. One of my favourites in the world is action and drama. I'm really ready to be entertained.
Yeah, let's get that entertainment underway by heading trackside for the final 20 minutes of this free practice session. There we can see the man leading the session at the moment, Mr. Danny Henney, the reigning champion as well, doing a little practice start from pole position on the left-hand side as we look at it. Actually, the wrong side. In reality, pole position would be on the racing line on the right, but for some reason iRacing puts it on the left, I guess because it gives you the inside line for turn 1, but I'm sure it's going to be very dirty there when we actually get underway for the first of 3 races that we will have tonight. Here is the championship leader, Kyle Power, heading out for another run. Crossed up there, my goodness, and that brings us very nicely to the topic of tyre temperatures and indeed the setup that they're running today, Chris, because it's been a little bit difficult for the guys out there.
Well, we didn't want to make it too easy for them, so a little bit of icy death on the first lap sounds like a good idea to me. And then towards the end of the stint, we're probably going to be getting the tyres overheating, so basically there's going to be a very small opportunity for success in this race.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out this is a high energy circuit as well, like with these S's that Carl Power is making his way through now, that is going to be contributing to that, but also a lot of big traction zones like out of turn 1, out of turn 11 that Power's heading up towards now, turn 12 as well, through that stadium section as well. The rear tyres are going through an awful lot of work.
They are, and I can hear trumpets in my ears talking about the tyres all the way around. It's going to be a fascinating spectacle, Chris, because last time we came out here, there was a lot of drama. It was our season finale, and Danny Henney didn't have such a great evening, and he's really got to pull it out of the bag this time, Chris, to catch up with Kyle in the championship.
He certainly does. Actually, the last time we raced here, it was Luca Harrison who was sort of the man of the moment. He took the feature race win and an additional podium in one of the sprint races as well. So of the the one-time event that we have raced here, it's Luca Harrison with the record. Even though Danny Henney was probably the fastest man on track during that event, as you say, he had a lot of really big struggles, and he puts that down to the last round nerves that he's sort of had it for a few seasons now, actually.
Absolutely, but he just definitely cannot afford to do that today, and it's going to be a lot of difficult conditions, as you said, with the tyre temperatures and the track. It's a hard circuit and quite an unforgiving one as well, so you've got to be very careful if you're Danny to keep out of trouble, and most importantly to try and make up some places in the second and third race, which traditionally this season have been a bit of a bogey for him.
Exactly, and that's why he's going into this round, the last round before we apply the drop score ahead of the finale in Interlagos, 30 points down on that man, Kyle Power. We'll get into the championship standings in a little bit more detail later on. But first, Chris, let's just bring everyone up to speed with what happened last time out at Spa. It's been about a month since that happened, and I'm still not over it.
Absolutely, I can still hear your voice in my dreams, Chris, just trying to call that last lap drama, that last corner drama. Once again, Kyle Power storming through. He was in 4th this time before the final chicane and came through to win, although not on the line, Chris.
No, absolutely. And it was this man we're watching now, Danny Henney, who collided with Harrison at that last corner. Harrison again involved in that last corner drama at Spa. And I think that's what made it so special. Is we had two of the key protagonists from the last time we saw the last lap, the last corner drama at Spa, ended up being involved in the same way. But of course, it was Gregoire Gomez who was the man across the line first. Here he is, the Frenchman, running the tricolore on his car. Third fastest in the session at the moment, because he was the first man over the line, but had picked up a penalty for exceeding the number of incident points. Had one too many track limits incidents there, and track limits are going to be another big talking point here tonight, Chris.
Absolutely a big deal here, Chris, because it is a incredibly difficult circuit to keep clean. There's lots of runoff. It's very tempting just to dip a wheel off the racing line over those big red stripy USA curbs. And the problem is there's 13 laps and you get 13 incident points and you get a penalty, Chris. So you can't even get one per lap. And don't forget, if you even have a slight brush with another car as well, you pick up some incident points. They've got to be keeping it clean to be anywhere near the front, Chris.
Exactly, and it's to the point where they're saying to me in qualifying, the secret is just going to be, setting a valid lap. So we could be seeing a number of drivers not actually getting a time on the board, and with this, the overheating issue that we've been talking about, which seems to happen quite quickly, within 5 laps, they're telling me, you're not going to have an awful lot of time or opportunity to set a valid lap in qualifying.
Absolutely. So the first 1 to 2 laps will be like being on ice skates with cold tyres, and then by lap 5 it's going to be hot. So that's when you've really got to be trying to dicing with each other to get that space, as Danny Henney, who I'm watching, is trying to carve his way through. And yeah, it's going to be tricky to find the space, and unlike some of the other rounds this year, Chris, the toe isn't that important here, so just trying to get a clear track will be more important than that.
This sort of intelligent racing or intelligent driving, and it's not just about brute speed, seems to be the kind of scenario where Kyle Power is going to exceed. We see 7th fastest in this session at the moment, about half a second off of Danny Henney's benchmark time. But as we see things unfurl, would things play into his hand the same way that we've seen it on a few occasions so far this season? That's why he's leading the championship.
I can guarantee you, if he qualifies 7th, he is not going to finish there. He's going to be much higher up the grid come the end of the race, possibly knocking on the podiums, depending on how those ahead of him do. And as I say, if they keep their noses clean, then you're going to get to the end. Another place to look out for, Chris, is actually pit entry. I've been watching some of the guys and watching on board, absolutely terrified as they're tearing into there and basically about ready to knock off both of their right corner wheels as they come steaming up at the barriers. It's quite a dramatic pit entry. And in the practice races, Chris, we've seen that the undercut might be quite important.
Yeah, because of that tyre overheating that we've been talking about. And interesting you mentioned the pit entry there, because of course the big difference since the last time we raced here at the Circuit of the Americas is we've introduced a mid-race pit stop in the feature race now for a splash and dash. So suddenly the ability to get in and out of the pit lane very quickly is so much more important than it ever was before. And as you say, it's quite a narrow pit entry. And if you overcook it, then you will end up in that wall on the right-hand side. And then, of course, there's the whole issue of getting it down to the speed limit in time, because there's not really many reference points that you can use in that pit lane entry.
There's not, and in typical racing driver fashion, the white lines that dictate the edges of the entry to the pit lane are duly ignored by most of the drivers, and they just sling it in between the walls and hope for the best. And quite frankly, it's terrifying, but great to watch.
Yeah, it certainly is. And we've been mentioning the fact that Kyle has raced very intelligently. Here's his nephew, by the way, Luke Power, who's been running very, very fast so far this week. Is second fastest in the session at the moment, just 0.06 of a second away from Henny. It's actually 65 thousandths of a second separating the top 3, so incredibly close margins. here in this practice session. And actually, Power goes top now, not by much at all, by just 600ths of a second, but a new benchmark time there of a 156.499 for the young teenager who was last year doing his GCSEs and is really a young star in this championship. But going on back onto the championship standings, of course, Kyle Power going into this one with a 30-point lead. We can take a look at the championship standings actually, and get a full look at how things stand going into the penultimate round of the championship. And of course, after this one, we will apply the drop score. So it is Kyle Power going into this one 368, 30 points clear of Danny Henny in that platinum standings. Alexander Dobertsberger very close behind as well after taking a victory this season and a couple of podiums to boot as well. He's only 10 points back from Henny, so don't count him out. And we'll see Stephen Williams and Alex Jonesma there. They look like they're far away, but they've had a completely missed round, so their drop score is going to be 0. And when you actually apply the drop scores to the results we've had so far, it's actually much closer, and they're kind of still in with a shout, really. So we must keep an eye on them as the night develops.
Yeah, there's going to be no runaway leaders this year, Chris. It's going to be all very close come the end. As you say, it's all about consistency in this championship, and there's not been as much of it this time as there was last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Colin Ward stealing a bit of a march in the Gold Driver Championships as well. He's on 283 points, and actually in the overall standings, he's well clear of his nearest rivals as well. And that could be one to watch. And could wrap that up quite nicely. I doubt he'll do it today, because you would need quite a significant advantage given the number of points we dish out on a single night. But looking at the silver standings as well, that is another championship that has been hotly contested, but at the moment being led by Taro Tylus, who is 8th overall in the standings as well. So there's been a good mix of the gold and silver drivers in amongst the platinums, and Luke Power is a very good example, silver driver that's currently leading the standings, but really kind of more going through his sort of bill of rights at the moment, and having to do his time, as it were, before being promoted to the gold or platinum. Just taking a look at the combined table, there you will see the top 3 platinum drivers. Colin Ward, the gold championship leader, in 4th overall, with Luca Harrison there in 5th, kind of slipping back a little bit actually, and he may be ahead of Williams and Jonesma in the overall standings, but his drop score is going to be quite a bit more significant. And really, Chris, that's because we've seen him involved in just too many incidents. There's no other way of putting it.
Absolutely, there have been well too many on-track clashes for that young man. So if he can bring that consistency together, I'm sure he would make a consistent title challenge. As could Richard Reddy, who has joined us in the commentary box.
I'm in a shiny livery, Catman. I think I'm confident enough that I can at least play a part up front. And I'm going to be honest with you, Catman. I want Kyle Power to win this championship. Whatever I can do to help him bring it home, I'm going to do. I'm going to give him toes in qualifying. I'm going to let him go by and fight like a lion as Henny tries to get by if I get a chance. Go Team Power.
Absolutely, and flying the Mist Apex colours this evening, trying to promote the podcast, which we're launching at the beginning of the season. It's looking like it's going to be a fun weekend.
Yes, and it's my shiniest livery because I had a brief flash of confidence where I was on track and I was fighting the likes of Henny and Ellis and Kyle Power, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to win. I need my shiny livery. That hubris has dissipated somewhat now that we've got to the official practice session and we're all doing laps and everyone has... It's like testing. It's not sandbagging, but when there's the race day focus, suddenly everyone seems to have gained 3 or 4 tenths. It's very annoying, so the temptation is going to be to overdrive and then end up doing a Bottas in Hungaroring, and that's not what we want.
Absolutely. I was just about to compare you to Alonso, who seems to be done rather well in testing, but then fades away. Is that a fair comparison?
No. I think you were doing well until the fades away. Yes, please do compare me to Alonso. I also have a magnificent lock of wavy black hair. No, not at all. I think there's a core of 3 or 4 drivers, Gomez, Henny, Luke Power, who are really, really on that very top pace. And then you've got, I think, the likes of Harrison and then Kyle Power on raw pace, just a little bit behind. And then I think I'm in the group behind them. So I would love a top 10 today.
It's looking good so far. I say in practice you sit 11th. Let's see what qualifying will bring for you.
I'm so bad at qualifying. As soon as those qualifying goggles go on, you go, right, it's now, especially as there's maybe 2 of your laps where your tyres are at their peak. It's so much pressure. First lap, you're not going to set a time in route lap, obviously, and it's super slippy. The second lap, I think you're about a second off the pace, so that is purely a banker lap to make sure you're not starting at the back. The second flying lap is the one you want to look for. That's when the tyres are their absolute best. Maybe you can get something in the next lap, but you might see a lot of guys slowing down in their third flying lap to try and bring the tyre temperature down.
Absolutely, and there's the incident points to look out for as well.
Yep, it's going to be a few drive-throughs. Have a good one, guys. Enjoy your broadcast.
Well, thanks for joining us, Spanners. Of course, be sure to check out Missed Apex podcast. We've got the testing review coming up tomorrow, and of course, the season will start proper in Bahrain next weekend. And Chris and I will both be on that testing review tomorrow, so definitely one to look out for. Right, we're into the final 4 minutes or so of this free practice session. So before we get into qualifying, let's take a closer look at this 5.513 kilometer circuit in Texas. And Danny Henny was kind enough to guide us around this circuit earlier this week.
Hi guys, and welcome to an onboard lap with me, Danny Henny, around the circuit of the Americas. Coming through the last corner now, heading over the start finish line, just gearing ourselves up, ready to bang in a fast lap. We're going to relax up this straight, waiting for turn 1 to approach us. Up the hill, we're going to brake just before the white line, down 3 gears and get the nose into the apex early. Pick the throttle up on the apex, straighten the car as quick as you can, watch for the kick oversteer and stay to the right and hug this curb. Off the curb, we're going to get into the next left. It's going to be flat, bit of a lift through the right, longer lift through the left. Here we're going to have a lift again, down 1 gear, a little bit of brake, get the nose in, over to the right to open this left, bit of a lift to get the nose in. In here we're going to go on the brakes, get in early, down 1 gear, hug that curb and open the car to the left as quick as you can for maximum traction. Heading down now into the next big stop onto the back straight, we're going to look for the 2 white lines on the right, we're going to brake in between them, get down to 2nd gear and get the nose in early to the apex, pick the throttle up smoothly for maximum traction down this long big back straight. Track's fantastic, so you've got plenty of time here to enjoy the views, getting ready for the next big stop coming up. Heading down into this big stop, we're looking for the white lines on the right, we're going to go past the first and brake at the second, down 3 gears to second, in early again, pick up the throttle as early as you can, over to the left, going to hit the brakes, down 1 gear, get the nose in, keep a nice continuous arc while picking the throttle up. Here we're going to brake in a straight line and V the corner, down 3 gears to second, get as close as you can to the apex, which will allow you to pick that throttle as hard as you can. Here we're going to turn in, stay early, all the grip is low, get as close as you can to these apexes in the curb, stay over to the right on the apex, we're going to brake just as the tarmac goes darker, down 1 gear, chuck the car in, pick the throttle up as early as you can, into the last corner we're going to brake just before the white line, down to second again, into the apex, pick the throttle up hard, watch the kick oversteer and across the start finish line. What a fantastic track it is to be racing, it should be a good event. Hope you enjoyed the lap, it was a 1:55.5, good luck for tonight.
Final 90 seconds of free practice before we go into qualifying. Still Luke Power setting the benchmark time of a 1:56.499. Just a quarter of a second separates the top 4 in this session, and most of the cars retired to pit lane at this point as we get ready for qualifying. Chris, do we have any bold predictions for this session?
My bold prediction would be that I can't predict what's going to happen.
It's often the way in this championship, isn't it?
Absolutely. We've had 4 different pole sitters for the first 4 races of this season. I think, however, this time, I reckon Luke Power has looked on fire this week. The raw pace of that man is extraordinary, so I'm hopeful that we might see him on pole today and see if we can get Danny Henney trying to attack him today.
Well, of course, Luke Power was on pole in round 3 at the Hungaroring, and actually, I've just noticed that the top 4 in this session at the moment is made up of our 4 pole sitters. Of course, it was Gregoire Gomez at the opening round at Hockenheim, Luca Harrison in round 2 at Silverstone, then Luke Power at the Hungaroring, and last time out it was Danny Henney at Spa. And Danny Henney, of course, are the only multiple feature races in 2 of the feature races. Brad Philpott at the opening round at Hockenheim, and Kyle Power, of course, won last time out, as mentioned. Here's a look at Tim Ellis, actually, in the number 4 car, who's 9th fastest in this session at the moment, just as the checkered flag is coming out. Might just sneak across the line in time to get that one across the board. Oh, I'm not sure if he made it or not, but that is the checkered flag for practice, and we will now head into a 10-minute open qualifying session. If this is the first time you're joining us for qualifying, then it runs a little bit differently to the official sessions that you might have taken part in iRacing, where you do 2 flying laps just by yourself. It is an open session, so they can run as many laps as they can fit in. And of course, Chris, they have to navigate the traffic, and Danny Henney taking no prisoners straight out front of the queue.
Absolutely, and navigating that first corner was tricky enough. I saw them tiptoeing around there. These tyres will be as cold as ice, so they will be slippery all over the place. So far, keeping it on the straight and narrow on the black stuff. We'll see come the end of the lap if they're all still there.
Certainly will, and just trying to see where some of our other front runners are at in this queue as well. I think Gregoire Gomez is about 4th in that queue, then it's Kyle Power 5th in the queue as well. So there's Tim Ellis once again, who's just a little bit further back in that pack. We'll see as they get on. There's Luca Harrison and Stephen Williams running quite close together, just in front of Ellis there. So a lot of the key contenders running towards the front of this train.
I would be interested, Chris, to know your thoughts on whether you think pole position being on the dirty side and on the inside is actually the worst place to start, because we've seen on plenty of occasions trying to go around the outside of turn 1 is dicey, but possibly the right way to go. And obviously in Formula 1 last year we saw Carlos Sainz dropping it on the first lap on the inside and taking people out. So actually maybe starting first on that dirtier inside maybe not be the right place to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much sort of modelling of the dirty line we're going to get here, really. It depends on the sort of track usage state, which tends to be quite high, but maybe that actually just increases the difference between the racing line and off the racing line, in which case starting on the inside would be very bad indeed. As Danny Henney starts his first flying lap of this qualifying session, we're on board with the reigning champion as he heads into turn 1, second gear, and look at him fighting the rear, well, more sort of gliding with the rear really on the exit of the corner. Certainly the tyres are not up to temperature just yet, flinging it into the S's now, and those sausage curves on the apexes are definitely ones to avoid, because they will absolutely wreck your car. Look at the understeer there coming through the left-hander, taking plenty of curb through the remainder of the S's. Come on, Chris.
I'd say that's right, Chris. It looked like he didn't quite have those front tyres switched on to the latter part of the S's, and actually that would have lost him a little bit of time coming into the crucial turn 11 hairpin now. Getting clear drive out of this looks like he has done to get him fired down that back straight. It's absolutely critical both in qualifying and in the race.
Yeah, it still looked a little floaty, didn't it, really? But it's a 47.5 in the first sector, which, as far as I can see on my timing screen so far, is the fastest so far in this session. Of course, he's the first man out in here, but the first sector times we've had so far, they seem to be the fastest as he heads into this stadium section. Now there's a little lock up there on the right-hand side going into the right-hander of turn 13. Here's the really tricky one, though. The rear end will always step out on you through there, and of course now into this flat-out triple right-hander. Although I don't think it's quite flat out actually on that first flying lap, maybe on the second or third, but maybe not quite yet.
And this is the one where it's so easy just to drift wide and get instant points. He was very tidy there, just running along the curbs, hooked it up nicely with the apex. Beautiful lap, Chris. Let's see what he can do.
So it's a 1:57.6 is the benchmark time from Danny Henny so far, but Alex Dronsma comes through to beat that with a 57.4. So a little over a tenth faster at the moment, whereas Gregoire Gomez, he's gone third fastest. He's a tenth off of Henny's benchmark. Now we saw Luke Harrison go over the line. He only did a 59 flat, so very much taking it easy on that opening lap. We're on board now with Kyle Power, who I don't think actually set a valid lap time. He did not. He's got 1x next to his name, so he's lost his sort of safety net lap, as it were. He's got to make this one count.
That could be absolutely critical for him if he's going to start low down the grid. If he doesn't get a valid lap in, or if his lap is has to be a bit cautious, because he can't throw caution to the wind. Because if he drops it somewhere, he'll be miles off in a little lock up, and that is not what he wanted down into that, let's say, crucial turn 11, Chris.
And who's he got in his wing mirrors? Luca Harrison, and that is probably the last person he wants to see, because he knows Luca is terribly fast this weekend, and I doubt it will be long before Luca's starting to feel a little bit held up and will want to do something about that in the closing stages of qualifying. And another little lock up there for Kyle Power, running just a smidge wide, in fact, on the exit of the corner. Don't think that invalidated that particular lap though. So as long as he keeps it on the straight and narrow on the remaining few corners of this lap, he should at least get a time on the board. But Harrison's coming at him thick and fast.
He is. This won't be a competitive time, really, because as you can see, Harrison has just gained absolute chunks on him with those couple of mistakes. Power's really under pressure to get a good grid slip.
So Danny Henny has gone faster. Drillsma's gone fastest again. Alex Drillsma has not shown really the pace in practice, but he's really fast at the moment. His time's just been beaten again, but this time by Gregoire Gomez. But it's properly close up at the front of the field. 77 thousandths of a second separates Gomez, Drillsma and Henny in the top three at the moment. Gomez is the first man to go sub 57. He's on a 56.982.
He is, and that lap from Kyle Power only put him in 9th place. A good 9/10 behind the pole position, so he's definitely got his work cut out for him to leapfrog past Spanners Ready, who is in 8th. That's a great lap from him. In the Kyle Power and Luke Power sandwich.
Incredibly, Kyle Power does not have a pole position to his name in this championship. Sort of the Lucas Degrassi of this championship, in that he seems fierce in the races, but qualifying speed never really been his forte. Of course, he has had the misfortune of racing alongside Danny Henny, who's very good at qualifying for the majority of his time in this championship. But yeah, what a battle that's emerging up at the front at the moment. Gomez could be going for his second pole position of the season, and I believe a second all-time as well. Indeed it would be. And Drillsma going for a second all-time as well, because remember Spa last season, where he suddenly springed up as a pole position contender right at the 11th hour and claimed his first pole position at that famous racetrack. Can he do it again today? 2 minutes left on the clock, Chris.
It's certainly possible, and he's flying the red, white and blue, although not of the USA, of France. So let's see if he can bring those colours home to victory in qualifying at least, and that will set up a fascinating race.
So Henny's improved now to a 56.7, and Drillsma did also improve, but he is a 10th off of Henny's time there. Let's see what Gomez has got as well. Don't think he improved. He didn't improve. It was an invalid lap, that one. So he's still on a 56.9. It's now 2/10 that separates the top three, and this time it's Henny back on top, and he's on course now for back-to-back pole positions, as we're coming up to either what is going to be the last attempt or maybe the penultimate one, depending when they cross the line. We'll keep an eye on the time left. We have 1 minute 20 remaining as Henny barrels down towards the braking zone of turn 11. He may well sneak one more lap in and Drumsman may be able to do so as well. But how are those tyres going to be holding up at this point?
That is the crucial thing, Chris. I think some of the other guys who have maybe taken a slightly less heat into their tyres, so like Harrison and Gomez, Stephen Williams pops up into 4th place with an excellent lap, only a quarter of a second down on Henny. But with these guys, have they overcooked it? Is Henny going to be able to keep up this pace?
Well, that is the question indeed. Henny's coming into that stadium section now. 40 seconds left on the clock. It's going to be very nip and tuck to see if any of these guys are going to be able to sneak one more lap in. I think for Gomez, definitely not. It's going to be nip and tuck for Henny and certainly for Drumsman as well. So less than 30
Harrison
seconds now remain.
Sorry, Chris. Harrison is pretty much out the running there as he dropped it coming into turn 12. So he's lit up the tyres and spun around. He's almost certainly not going to be able to revive those tyres enough to make another lap. So he is out of the running for pole position.
And he's only 5th fastest at the moment behind Stephen Williams, actually. So here comes Danny Henny out across the line now. What is going to be the lap time? He didn't improve. It's only a 57.1. So his benchmark remains the 56.7 that he set last time around. Drumsman doesn't improve. He set an invalid lap. And Gregoire Gomez does improve, but not in position. He remains 3rd fastest, a 10th.5 off of provisional pole. And that could well be all she wrote for the battle for pole position.
Yeah, top 4 separated by a quarter of a second. What a close session that was, Chris.
Yeah, it certainly was. Maybe just see if Henny's still pushing, because didn't quite see if they got over the line in time to set another lap. But we do at least have 33 lap times on the board, and certainly not as much of a worry at these track limits as we were expecting. Although of course we've still got a 13 lap feature race to go.
Yeah, that being said, Kyle Power does start in 10th position at the very best, because he's had to abandon. He's just 0.06 of a second behind Spanners Ready. So yeah, that's a bit of a disaster for Kyle. He's going to have to really get his elbows out and move forwards.
Certainly is, and I think looking at Henny's pace here now, I think that is definitely he's pulling off the circuit now, so he's done for this session. Drumsman continues on, but not sure this is actually going to be an improvement for him. We'll keep an eye on him just in case, but he's not heading for the pit lane. We'll see if he can actually improve this time. So he did actually make it across the line in time for that extra lap in the end, but it's not an improvement. It's 57.2, so I think the tyres have pretty much had it at this point. Checkered flag is most certainly out now. We're going to the grid now for the feature race, round 5 of the Missed Apex iRacing F3 Cup. The penultimate round of this season, and here is how they line up. It's Danny Henny on pole position for the 2nd time this season alongside Alex Drumsman. Then it's Gregoire Gomez and Luke Power on row 2, followed by Stephen Williams and Luca Harrison. Alexander Dobbelsberger and Tim Ellis make up row 4, with Richard Reddy on the 5th row ahead of the championship leader Kyle Power in 10th place. Then comes Scott Tuffy and Jose O'Donnell, a winner last time out in one of the sprint races at Spa. There's Alex Smith and Colin Ward, who is the Gold Championship leader in 13th and 14th. Matt Cook and Daniel Cook on the 8th row, ahead of Adrian Clark and John McClintock on row 9, with Alex Van Gien and Matt Trumpets making up the 10th row of the grid. And Peter Shilcock and Aaron Bray line up on the 11th row, with Richard Molden and Nick Alexander, then Ryan Cedric and John Langan. Alexandros Marifkani, John Cox ahead of Miguel Moreland, Ivan Anderson, Mike Stoner, Brian Dukowski, Stephen Taylor, Mark Greenhow, Barry Kemp, Andrew Sexton and Trinidad Zavala make up a 37-car field for this feature race. Round 5 of the Missed Apex iRacing F3 Cup, and certainly what has been the most competitive championship we have seen to date. Our 3rd season using the F3 car for our dedicated series, and it has provided us with plenty of drama and action. What more awaits us at the Circuit of the Americas? All 5 lights are on. And it's lights out in Texas as Danny Henny makes a very good start from pole position, and Gregoire Gomez challenging for second place already. He's up the inside of Alex Dronsma coming into turn one. Dronsma taking a very wide line there through the corner, and that allows Gomez to get the whole shot through the corner, but they're going to be side by side on the exit. Gomez will have the line into the S's. That could well cement him second place. Indeed it does, as he chops the nose there of Dronsma. Harrison is up into fourth place already, ahead of Luke Power. Stephen Williams comes next in sixth place, and it's Tim Ellis. Kyle Power up a couple of places as well. He's in eighth place. And look at Luca Harrison there, trying to get around the third place car of Alex Dronsma through the middle of the S's. But for Danny Henny, he's clear in the lead by half a second.
He is, and what put Drillsma off at the beginning was he was creeping at the start, especially before the lights went out. I saw his car move a couple of feet forwards. He then had to put the brakes back on and then didn't get a good launch away at all. So that is what allowed Gomez to just fire up the inside. Even though a nice late braking move as we see here, Luca Harrison going up the inside of Drillsma, Chris.
Yep, he'll have the inside line down into turn 12. He had a very nice slipstream, and this should be quite a simple move. A little puff of smoke, though, as he locks up, and Luke Power trying to follow him through as well. Dronsma will have to go a little bit wide there. So Harrison's through, although he's launched it back up the inside into the stadium section, and they're still side by side for third place. Coming through this snaking sequence of corners. Harrison with the line, and Luke Power trying to get involved in that as well. So Harrison eventually picks up that third place spot, and that has certainly allowed Gregoire Gomez to pull a nice, comfortable gap on the opening lap of the race. But it's Harrison up into third place. A cracking start from the youngster.
It is. That's the beauty of that stadium section. The Drillsma already jumped into the pits.
He must have a drive-through. It must be a jump start.
Must be for that jump start. That is such a disappointment for him as he comes in. Looks like he's trundling down a very odd line down there. Is he looking for his pit box? Is this actually a tactical stop?
Will be. Certainly will be. So Harrison cementing that third place now, but he's got Luke Power very much in his mirrors. And there is a queue of cars behind him as well. Actually, we've got battling for third, the two youngest drivers in the field, the two teenage stars, Luca Harrison and Luke Power, who have both been incredible to watch in this championship. And let's think back to the Hungaroring, where those two went absolutely hammer and tongs over a few positions in the feature race. Battling wheel to wheel and bumping wheels and very much pushing track limits. They won't be able to do that here, but certainly it looks very close. And I'll tell you what else it looks close. It looks close for the lead as well. Gomez is very much going with Henny in this early stage of the race. But on board with Power now as they head towards the braking zone of turn 12. Is he close enough to make a move? He pulls out. It's going to be a lunge. It is a lunge. He's on the inside. Harrison has to leave him some space. Side by side again, and Harrison once again is having to get his elbows out into this stadium section. Power will get the undercut here, chopping across the curbs. But Harrison, oh, another lunge. Bang! Up the inside. He's run wide though. He's got it all locked up. Is that going to lose him a place to Stephen Williams as well? I think it will do. They're going to be close side by side. Williams going to be on the outside line for this very fast right-hander. I don't think that's the ideal line, but he's made it work. He's made it work. He's up the inside of the penultimate corner, and that's cracking stuff from Stephen Williams. And Power's now into the pits as well. What is that about?
Has he overcooked that front tyre, Chris, as he locked up going off the circuit? Maybe he's decided that would just lose him too much time, so going for an early pit stop. That may cause him trouble towards the end, though, as those tyres start to go off.
Getting dicey for 7th place behind Stephen Williams here as Dobertsberger is trying to get up the inside of Kyle Power, the championship leader, who's been keeping it steady in these early stages. Power having to get his elbows out there. Yeah, that's certainly an interesting move from Luke Power, because he hasn't had the incident points, certainly not, unless he jumped the start as well and we haven't seen it. Yeah, I mean, his tyres surely are going to be crying enough by the end of this race. We see an excellent run off the S's here for Alex Dobertsberger. He's up the inside. He's going to have this done before they even get to the braking zone. Fantastic. So a little mistake there from Power, it looked like. Kyle Power, we should say, the championship leader, as he just ran a little wide in the S's, and that was a very easy move for Alex Dobbelsberger in the end.
It was, and Kyle wasn't even able to make the apex behind him to switch back, so I don't think he's going to get enough of a toe for a lunge. Kyle isn't the lunging type. He's not the most lungy of our panellists. No, indeed, he does stick behind Dobbelsberger there, so that is a net 7th for Kyle, although, as you said, there's a couple who've pitted ahead of him, so yeah, it's a bit of a worrying time for him. I've seen these two dice before, and they're usually quite clean races, and they are, as you can see, just ahead of them, catching up with Tim Ellis. It's going to be a three-way fight for the lower part of the points.
Yeah, of course. So with the demise almost of Alex Jonesmer and Luke Power heading into the pits on the first couple of laps, it's really promoted these guys. It's Tim Ellis up to 5th place here. We can see in that familiar blue and yellow car. We'll keep an eye on this, but just to let you know, the lead gap has gone out to 1.4 seconds. I noticed at the start of the last lap that suddenly Gomez had dropped back massively, so maybe a mistake on that last lap. It does look like it because his last lap was 9/10 of a second slower than our race leader Danny Henny, having just set the fastest lap of the race as well with a 57.2. So it looks like Gomez is going to have to put in quite a bit of hard work if he wants to close down that gap. But behind them we've got Stephen Williams in 4th place with Ellis, Dobbelsberger and Power all within a second of each other.
Concern for the guys pitting early on lap 1 and 2 is they're now having to claw their way back through the field. So Luke Power I've just seen get in nearly a couple of incidents, so we'll see how well they manage to climb through. I would tell you where they were, Chris, but my timing tree's gone a bit funny. Yes, he's going to have to make some daring moves to move through the field quite quickly in order to not lose any time. He's in P24 and ahead of him is Brian Didowski.
Yeah, certainly a lot of work to be done there. He's going to have to be coming through this traffic as well, which I think is only going to hurt the tyre issue even more. So bold here from Luke Power as he makes that move on Brian Didowski there. But we'll just rejoin that battle over 4th, 5th and 6th. We can follow Kyle Power in 7th place. It looked like he was closing up on that gap to Dobbelsberger. Actually, Dobbelsberger very close to Ellis there, actually. As Henny sets another fastest lap of the race, but this battle keeping us enthralled. Actually, talking of incident points, Colin Ward has already picked up 8, and we're only on lap 5 of 13, so he's going to have to keep it neat and tidy. So we'll keep an eye out on that, but let's keep an eye on this battle for now, as Dobbelsberger follows Ellis through the S's section. It must be so hard to try and actually follow a car through this sequence of corners.
Absolutely, because you just need to nail each one of those apexes, and it's really hard to see because of the elevation changes as well. And then you've got the wash from the car in front from the wings, and I know these cars don't have as much downforce as a Formula 1 car, so you can follow a little bit closer. But you can definitely feel it as you're going through the corners. You start to get the steering, as you get a little bit closer, the steering goes a little bit lighter. So you might see Dobbelsberger just keeping his nose a little bit out from behind as Ellis goes defensive into turn 12. Is Dobbelsberger going to make a lunge? He shows his nose to the inside, but he's not close enough this time around. But yes, you might see him just trying to energise that front wing, just taking a little wider or tighter line to see if he can just keep that front end turning in, all the while trying to see if he can evade the advances of Power behind him.
Some of the lap traffic, they're just navigating there through the stadium section. It's all really closing up between these three now. That sort of half-hearted lunge from Dobbelsberger into 12 seems to sort of bunch him up a little bit, allow Power to close the gap ever so slightly. These three cars now separated by about 1.1 seconds. You see Williams is not far ahead of them as well, so this is still very much on 4th place as Ellis kicks out the back end out the final corner. Not going to be doing his rear tyres any favours, as we're into that danger zone now, Chris, where they're telling us that the rear tyres are going to be pretty cooked by this point, and so we should keep an eye out for anybody struggling with traction. And if anybody's going to come into the pits to try and alleviate some of that tyre temperature.
That's right, and all this battling and sliding through the S's, though it looks beautiful and stunning, it's definitely going to be wrecking those tyres. So you might see, as I say, we saw Kyle Power, even actually when the tyres were cold, sliding a little bit. So we'll see if he can keep up with the guys in front of him. It seems to be all fairly as you were for now. But we'll see over the next couple of laps if anybody does make that dive for the pit lane, Chris, because we said that the undercut would be quite powerful, because although the tyres would be cold, they might well be able to switch them on slightly better than those toasted tyres. So we'll see if anybody makes a strategic move.
Lap 6 of 13. Danny Henny's lead up to 1.8 seconds now. Here's Luke Harrison in third place, who's not really been able to go with Gregoire Gomez either. And I know he lost quite a bit of time on the opening lap, squabbling over that podium spot, and indeed on the second lap as well. But not really had an answer for Gomez's pace. He's been lapping just a little bit slower last time round, about 0.3 of a second. 3 seconds to separate them, but he is at least about 1.7 seconds ahead of that battle for third place we were watching. That's currently being headed by Stephen Williams. Nobody making a dive for the pits just yet, so they'll do another lap round. On to lap 7 now. And it does feel like something is brewing in this little trio of cars here between Ellis, Dobertsberger and Bauer.
It is, and speaking of the other Power, he's down in 22nd place, and he is absolutely hot on the heels of Alexandros Mavgani and going down the inside of him. So he is making up some progress, but I do think that early pit stop was a bit of a strategic error, maybe forced, as I say, from going wide, but to me, it doesn't look like he's in the running at this point. We'll see how long it takes in the pits and see whether they drop down all the way to him. But he's got his work cut out for him to make a decent finishing position at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think your timing screen might be on the fritz again, because I've got him in 16th place actually. But it's all about the gap, isn't it? And he has at least been making his way through the field.
As always, Chris, just take anything I say with a pinch of salt. You might have lottery numbers as far as I'm concerned with the placings here.
Battle for fifth place closing up here, because Dobertsberger, sorry to cut over you there, Chris, but Dobertsberger right in the wheel tracks here of Tim Ellis as they head towards turn 12. Ellis has covered the inside. Has Dobertsberger got the momentum to break around the outside? Well, he's just about keeping his nose in the running there. On the inside now for the stadium section, getting very, very close. You've got to be careful not to light up the tyres here. Now Ellis will have the line into this next left-hander. Power right with them now. Proper trio of cars, this squabbling over this 5th place spot, allowing Stephen Williams to romp clear ahead of them. But absolutely nose to tail through the triple right-hander of 16, 17 and 18. But no changes just yet.
See how much this fighting is costing him as Ellis in front dives into the pit lane. He realised he's had enough of those tyres and of this battle, so that leaves Power and Dobertsberger to duke it out. Now let's see, that might be a good move there from Ellis to get those new tyres on as he comes into the pit lane.
Yep, so he'll cool those tyres off while these two are busy squabbling. Now we saw this work really well in Hungaroring, for example, where people would just get out of the squabble, out of the battle, and just set some clean laps. And it looks like Ellis is coming out into relatively clean air as well. So he should be able to set some good pace now while these two are busy fighting each other. It depends on how much squabbling they actually do. So he's emerged in 11th place there. Dobertsberger and Power just coming out of the S's section now. And the Power will be the one to play this smart, I think. He will just focus on the lap times, I think. But we'll see how things go, because, well, he's right up his gearbox through turn 11.
We were right, Chris. He's come out about 4 or 5 seconds ahead of Luke Power. So that is the problem that he's had getting through those back markers.
Yeah, he's definitely lost a lot of time there to be behind Ellis, because he was battling for third place. So he's dropped a few seconds there in the overall picture. now that we've seen Ellis come in, are any of these guys going to respond or react to that? Obviously, still no action from the top three in terms of the pit stop. Henny's lead actually is now over 3 seconds, so he is certainly not going to be worrying about any of the cars behind him making a pit stop and potentially undercutting him, because he's got quite a significant lead at the moment. And this is exactly what Henny needed, isn't it, to be able to start closing up that gap again. It's 30 points to Power going into this, especially as Power, it doesn't seem to be having the best night in terms of this, in terms of pace in this feature race at the moment. And this could really shake things up in terms of the championship ahead of the final round.
Absolutely, as Kyle just takes a little bit of a different line to Dobbitsberger there, maybe trying to scare him off for the apex. But yeah, he just doesn't seem to have got the raw pace to be able to deal with the guys in front. But he's doing a good job to cling on. Interestingly, neither of these two took the opportunity to hit the lap straight after Ellis. So we'll see, as Ellis is going to be making up some time on them, so he may well have just got the jump. We'll see. But as Dobbitsberger in Power, Dobbitsberger getting a little bit squirrely there out of the S's, we might be seeing these tyres starting to scream enough.
Well, it's lap 9 of 13, and of course 9 laps will be the length of the sprint races, where they won't really have an opportunity to cool off their tyres, certainly not in the pit stops anyway. Power's looking an awful lot closer to Dobbitsberger this time around, isn't he? Maybe not quite close enough for a lunge, but he seems to be pushing just that little bit harder now as we go on board with him into the braking zone of turn 12. Touch right up under the gearbox of Dobbitsberger. Of course, took a win last time out at Spa. It wasn't at Spa, sorry. It was at Silverstone, wasn't it? And the Hungaroring, I believe, where he racked up... No, I'm looking at completely the wrong... It was the Hungaroring. He took one win at the Hungaroring. And that has very much left him in championship contention, along with his 2 podiums. And now diving into the pits is Dobbitsberger. Now, this is going to be interesting. We're going to see where he comes out relative to Tim Ellis, because Ellis is the one who's already made his stop. Trundling down the pit lane now. Seems to have, so you've safely navigated the pit entry, you've safely slowed it down in time. Ellis is just coming around the final corner now. This guy's right at the end of the pit lane here. It's a short splash of fuel, puff of smoke from the rear tyres as he lights them up to get going again. There is the pit exit line, and Ellis is coming. He's coming with a bit of speed here. Could be very close indeed, as Dobbitsberger is going to be on the inside. Now Ellis is going to have momentum. Actually, he's got a car in between them as well. That's John McClintock who's come out between them. So that's worked out quite nicely for Dobbitsberger, actually. He's jumped Ellis.
That's very nice for him, and also he had to be very careful not to drop it at the end of the first corner on those cold tyres. You could see how much of a run McClintock got at him, but I think it's crucial that there's that car in between them, Chris. McClintock, I don't think, will have the pace to keep up with Dobbitsberger, so Ellis has got to clear him quickly if he wants any chance of being able to get at him in the last couple of laps, especially with warm tyres. He should be at peak performance, 2-3 laps after his pit stops. He's really got to reel Dobbitsberger in quickly.
Now that's interesting, because everyone's been telling us the undercut's going to be best, the tyres are going to be cooked after a few laps, so get him in early and do your best on the cooler tyres. But here we've seen Dobbitsberger staying out a few laps longer than Tim Ellis and coming out ahead of him. So I guess now eyes on Kyle Power and see what he can do when he comes into the pits. Of course, we're coming up to those closing stages of the race now. Lap 10 of 13. Won't have too many opportunities left to bring it into the pits.
I mean, is it the traffic that's been causing the issues this evening? Because Ellis, as you can see, we're riding on board with him now, and that's McClintock just ahead of us. Has he been held up, as Kyle Power indeed does drive into the pits at this lap, on lap 11? So we shall see if they're going to come out ahead of him. I think Dobbitsberger is going to give him a run for his money.
Well, Gomez is in the pits at the moment as well. Harrison came in last time round. Power's into the pits as well now, so suddenly it's all go in the pit lane. I think the only person left to make his stop is the race leader, Danny Henny. Stephen Williams also running long as well, so he's up to second place now. But Gomez in third place. He's ahead of Harrison.
Side by side is the first corner, Chris. Power and Dobbitsberger. Dobbitsberger is crawling all over the back of him. It looks like he's not going to make it past this time. So that undercut didn't work, and actually the overcut was the way to go.
And for Power,
Incredible.
That's gained him 2 places over Ellis and Dobbitsberger. So what were we saying at the start of the broadcast, Chris, about intelligent racing and how Power always seems to come out on top as Dobbitsberger there? See him getting all crossed up in the middle of the corner there, trying to chase down Kyle Power. So he's already made a move once on Power tonight, I think, and he'll be looking to do so again. But for now, Power's up 2 spots.
Indeed he did, Chris. It was at this corner here, turn 11, he made the move before. You can see him just getting slightly squirrely on the exit, really trying to get the Power down. Power is trying to break that toe. You can see him just moving gently across the road. I think he's done enough to keep ahead this time, Chris, but that is absolutely crucial for him. Now he's got that opportunity through the stadium section to just get those tyres warmed up that little bit more and keep that advantage.
Yeah, quite difficult to pass through here, isn't it? You've got to be really side by side or really down the straight to make that work. But, Power moving up a couple of spots and holding off Alexander Dobbitsberger for now. And this is what's going to be key for Power in terms of sort of minimising the damage in terms of his championship. As we see the top 2 now into the pits, Danny Henney, our race leader, and Stephen Williams, who moved up to second place by staying out that long. He's in as well. Now remember, he was ahead of the Power Dobbitsberger Ellis battle as well. So as Henney rejoins the track, well clear of any sort of threat at this point, and it safely navigates that first corner. Stephen Williams has come out ahead of this battle. Just see him there coming through the right-hander of turn 2. So he's been able to avoid any potential threat from the cars behind him. And once again, we've seen that overcut actually extend the gap a little bit. So it's as you were for the top 4. The big story in the pit stop phase is that Kyle Power has moved up from 7th to 5th ahead of Dobbitsberger and Ellis. And actually Ellis was the one to lose out, actually, from 5th place to 7th. And Luke Power, in all of this, has come out in 8th. He's about a second behind Ellis.
Just shows you, Chris, never listen to what a racing driver tells you about his strategy, because he's always going to try and mislead you. Yeah, absolutely. That was a good exit there from Dobbitsberger. Took a bit of a tighter line, so he's got a slipstream here from Kyle Power. Chris, do you think he'll be close enough come turn 12?
Well, time will tell, won't it? He's certainly gaining. Power seems to think he's close enough to move over to the inside, and very late on the brakes. My goodness, that was very heavy on the left foot from Dobbitsberger, and now I think Power's a little bit spooked here because he's going defensive into the stadium section as well. But once again, he's repelled the advances of the man in the Ace of Spades car. That's a livery that we've been familiar with since we started our iRacing championship.
I believe they have a back marker just ahead of Kyle Power, Chris, so this is going to be crucial that he leaps out of the way if possible. We all know that... Oh, and Kyle goes really wide there. I think he got distracted off the road. So yeah, let's see. Dobbitsberger right on his tail coming up the hill.
Yeah, that's his first incident point of the race, actually. But it's the white flag has gone out, so it's the last lap of the race, and we see Power trying to steal that slipstream from the back marker, and it's very much not over in this battle for 5th place as Kyle Power and Alexander Dobbitsberger duke out on the last lap of this feature race. No doubt about who's going to be winning it. It's going to be Danny Henney because he's over 3 seconds clear, but Dobbitsberger following Power, the championship leader, through the S's. Power's done a really good job in terms of the strategy to gain a couple of places. He's not had the raw pace so far this weekend. It's damage limitation for the championship leader as Dobbitsberger tries a little sneaky move, maybe trying to just distract Power there. But this is where it's going to be important. Touch right in the wheel tracks of the championship leader as they head down to that hairpin that leads onto the long straight. Dobbitsberger again looking to the inside, but Power cuts the nose. There, the exit here going to be so important, and both of them stepping out the back end as they get on the Power. Dobbitsberger certainly close enough here to be challenging Power towards turn 12. What's Power going to do with this? Stays on the outside line. Interesting. So not going defensive, and giving Dobbsberger the line into the corner. Power will try and brave it out around the outside, and this is why he wanted that outside line, because he knows he's going to have the advantage into this next right-hander. We've seen plenty of wheel-to-wheel action here, because now Ellis and Luke Power are joining the fight as well. This could end in tears if they're not careful. Power tight to the inside here, and I think he might just hang on to this 5th place spot. Meanwhile, here comes Danny Henney through the final corner, absolutely dominated this feature race and takes his 4th victory of the season and makes a big dent in Kyle Power's championship lead with victory at Circuit of the Americas. Gregoire Gomez comes home in 2nd place, 3.2 seconds distant in the end, and Luca Harrison completes the podium. Stephen Williams is 4th, and it's absolutely neck and neck for 5th place, but it's Kyle Power just about by only a couple of tenths in the end to Alexander Dobbsberger. Great show those two put on in the closing stages, with Ellis in 7th and Luke Power coming home in 8th.
What a fantastic battle we had towards the end there, although one person who wasn't involved in that was our race leader and winner, Danny Henney. Danny, that's exactly what you needed for your championship ambitions.
Yep, get in. Yeah, I really needed that. I don't know where it puts us in the championship, but oh my God, the tyres were deadly. And I was absolutely doing my best to look after them. And yeah, it come good. I see Greg started to drop off, started to manage the pace a little bit. And then I was just happy when it looked like he was making a few mistakes and had a couple of seconds. And the last lap, I was like a tortoise. I was nearly coming to a stop in every slow speed zone. But yeah, super chuffed. Redemption. Absolute redemption for the last time we come here.
Absolutely, and it looked like you took quite a late pit stop there, Danny, when we were under the impression that from the practice races that an early pit stop might be beneficial, but everybody seemed to prove us wrong.
Yeah, no, it was. The tyres get a massive boost by cooling down, but once I'd got the gap, I was just praying. I just wanted to stay out of everybody's way. I had a few moments in the race, but I feel if I could get a couple of seconds, I could afford to take it quite easy on the in lap. And fortunately, when I come out, it looked like the gap had stayed roughly the same to Greg, so I could just manage the pace then from there to the end.
Absolutely, and speaking of staying out of people's way, you're going to start 20th place for the reverse grid race in race 2. It's quite a difficult track to overtake on, with lots of opportunities to pass back. How are you feeling about race 2?
Not very good. I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with the reverse grids. I've been took out quite a few times, memorably at Silverstone. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to be doing my absolute best to survive on lap 1, and then we'll take it from there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Danny. Enjoy the champagne.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Well, let's take a look at the results then from the feature race of round 5 of the Missed Apex iRacing F3 Cup. It's Danny Henney for the 15th time in this championship, victorious, 3.2 seconds clear in the end of Gregoire Gomez, who takes his 2nd podium of the season, and Luca Harrison takes his 4th in 3rd place. Stephen Williams in 4th with Car Power just coming out on top in that 4-car battle on the final lap, and I think just about retains his championship lead with that as well, with Dobbsberger, Ellis and Luke Power in the top 8. Then it's Alex Smith and Colin Ward completing the top 10. Of course, Luke Power there taking the silver class win ahead of Smith and Cook as well. And there we see in 20th place, it will be Scott Tuffy, who starts on reverse grid pole position, the wild card entry, who only made the decision to race today. Is going to end up on pole position for race number 2 with John Cox alongside him, and Spanner starting on the 2nd row of the grid as well. That is certainly going to be one to watch, as we saw a few DNFs in there, including Alex Van Gien, and I think we saw Alex Stronsma. He just missed out actually on that reverse grid pole position in 21st place by only 0.7 of a second. Nightmare stuff for him after what we believe was a drive through for a jump start. So we have the first reverse grid race coming up in a few moments time. We're going to take a very quick break, but don't go anywhere because we'll be right back.